All right, this is a story about a rabbi. He passed away, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. His name was Rabbi Chaim Gutnick. And he was a very special person. He was, first of all, he was a rabbi and he was the head of a big community. And he was also a businessman. And he was very close to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe liked him a lot. He lived in Australia. So he went to the Rebbe once, and the Rebbe told him, and I'm leaving certain details out, maybe. I'm telling it the way I remember it. And it could be a few of the details got a little mixed up, but the point I remember. Okay, so the Rebbe tells him, he goes into the Rebbe for a blessing, and I know it. The people in a city, a little town a, in Australia called Adelaide, a little town or whatever it is. Anyway, a little Jewish community in Adelaide. I'm not really familiar with Australia. Australia is one of the few places I've never been to. And so they called him up. He was also a chazan. He had a good voice. He knew how to sing. So for the high holy days, as he got called up, and they asked him if he would come down and be their cantor. So I don't know if at this time he had his own congregation or whatever, but anyway, it was a little congregation in this, faraway place. How'd you get my name? We heard, and we asked around. We heard you good. So he said, well, I'm not sure. Maybe you can try to find somebody else. He said, no, we looked around. We can't find anybody else. So he said, okay, I'll ask the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He didn't really so much want to spend his high holy days in some sort of a, faraway place. This story must have been like 50 years ago. Anyway, so he asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him to take the job. So he took the job. So, I mean, the money, he didn't need the money, but to help another Jew, why not? I mean, where he was in Melbourne, I think. Melbourne, I think so. Melbourne or Sydney, I think he was in Melbourne. So he took the job. So he went over there, and they arranged the place. And he noticed that when it was in the prayers, I guess in the weekday before Rosh Hashanah, or maybe it was on Rosh Hashanah, that there was a community there that, like, they sat sort of in the corner, sort of separate from everybody else. The men sat separate from the women, of course, but they sat also in the back. So he asked somebody, what was that? He said, oh, those are the Jews that came here from Egypt, Mitzrayim. And they don't sort of mix in with everybody else. They sort of feel, okay, we've tried, several times to befriend them and everything like that, but they have their own customs and things like that. And so they keep to themselves. So, okay, doesn't think too much about it. Anyway, so he goes to the synagogue and he's practicing. Maybe that happened on Rosh Hashanah, could be anyway. So there were 7 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur, then he really there's a lot of prayers that he has to make over there. So he goes to the synagogue and he's practicing. He's sitting there and he's learning, he's practicing. And he's sitting there alone in the synagogue. Anyway, there was, I guess, maybe a time when he was taking a break or something, or he was resting. And he sees a girl come in, accompanied by a lady, and he looks from the side and he sees this girl is blind. And the lady takes her up to the front. The lady takes her up to the front of the synagogue and leaves her there, and she goes outside to wait. It seems pretty obvious that the lady that brings her in is not Jewish. And this girl is from, like, the Egyptian community. So he sits and he waits, and this girl starts crying and weeping and weeping. And, please, God, help me. Send someone to help me. Please, please, please. And so he doesn't know what to do. He goes up to the girl and he asks her, what's the story? And she just hears that and she calls for the lady to come out. Anyway, she goes outside. In any case, he does not speak to this girl. Doesn't speak to her. So he asked someone from the community, what's going on over there? So he said, that's this Egyptian community that there's there. And there's one girl that's blind in the community. She was brought into the synagogue. She's praying. I don't know. I have no idea. You know who they are? You know what there is? They live over there. Anyway, so he goes and he looks And he searches around in the community until finally he finds the house where the family of this blind girl. And at first they don't want to let him in. They don't know what's going on. And finally he tells them, he promises them that it's going to be okay, that it is. They let him in. And he says, yeah, I was sitting in the synagogue and they brought your daughter in and she was crying. She was crying. And he brought her and she was saying, God, please help me. I mean, is there anything that I can do? Maybe, I mean, the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent me, said I should come here. Maybe it's for this. They said, no, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. She's just a little emotional sometimes, and she's blind, and she has her problems, and that's it. Are you really sure? Anyway, the conversation continued and continued, and he said, and she came into the room. They tried to hide her. This is how I remember the story. They said, "Oh, how are you?" She said, "Oh, Rabbi, maybe you can help me. Maybe you were sent by God. Can you help me?" And they said, "No, it's nothing." They tried to keep her quiet. And he said, well, tell me, what's the story? What was happening? So they said, listen, we don't really know. We don't really this, and everything was okay. And this. And finally, it comes out that they told the story. What's the story? She was learning in a school for the blind, but it was all for young people, only for children that were young, small children, whatever reason it was. She couldn't learn there anymore, or they wanted too much money, or they didn't have the money, they didn't have the funds, and the government didn't give the funds. Whatever reason is that she couldn't learn in this school anymore, or she was learning. Either she had graduated, she got in a higher level grade, or whatever. So we looked around for them. They wanted a fortune of money, to put her. We didn't. And then in our looking around, so it must have been one of the places where we looked, they called the church, and the church got in touch with us. And they said, we have a special school for, handicapped children, and we'll bring a special teacher, and she can be with us. She can teach in our classes. We have other children that are blind and deaf, and we have a special teacher, special care, and we'll provide meals, we'll provide everything, and it doesn't cost anything. We'll do it for free. So we thought to ourselves, what are we going to do with her? We're going to leave her at home. She's just going to sit at home, going to wander the streets. We can't find her a job. We can't find her anything. And we don't know, what. And the church is offering us all these benefits, everything for free, everything for good. So Reb Goodnick says, listen, you can't put her into the school. There's no way you can do it. It's idolatry. We're going to put her into idolatry. So if I remember the end of the story correctly, so he writes to the Rebbe what to do, and the Rebbe gives him advice. If I'm not mistaken, he told him that there's another school that's not far away, in another place, whatever, and he solved the problem. The Rebbe solved the problem. He solved the problem that the girl found a place to learn, and that they taught her, and that she became, a regular productive citizen. So what's the point of the story? The point of the story is somehow or other, the Rebbe felt the distress of this girl, and the you say the one-way street, the cul-de-sac that she had gotten herself into, that it seems that there was no way out, that she would have to go, a Jewish girl, and she would go to now a normal regular person said, what do I care, which goes to it, she's, But in this case, the Rebbe felt that the distress was, first of all, the distress of this girl. She didn't want to go to the school. And I'm sure if she would have gone to the school, they would have, worked on her and convinced her that it was okay. But because he felt this far away, so he told Rav Goodnick, and through Rav Goodnick just